BGG.CON is an annual convention hosted by Board Game Geek in mid to late November, where we have a library of several thousand games available, including all of the newest titles from Gen Con and Spiel, giving you the chance to try pretty much anything you want. And each year I attend BGG.CON and I play almost nothing from the library, because I'm going to that show with a different agenda. Typically, I've just discovered a game at Spiel, I want to play it more, get more experience, and really feel like I've got an understanding of the game, and going to an event like that is a perfect opportunity because I can play with pretty much any player count, I can play with a wide variety of people, some I know, some I don't know, so you get different experiences than just playing with the same group every time. So the game I brought to BGG.CON 2023, Surfosaurus Max, a card game for 2 to 6 players by designer BGG.CON and Loosey Goosey Games, that debuted at Spiel Lesson 23, that I had played at my house 3 times in the same session with 6 people, had a blast, and was like, I got to do more on this. I got to figure out, was it just the people that I know and had this great experience with people I like playing games with, or is it more about the game itself, facilitating that good time? So I took it to BGG.CON, played it 8 times with player counts from 3 to 6. It's a 2 to 6 player game. It's a 2-player game, has a dummy. I don't like those. So didn't do that. 3 to 6 players, had a great time, loved it. So let me talk about it. Surfosaurus Max is essentially a cooperative poker game where players are going to play cards to the center of the table. You then see what the best hand of cards is, 4 or 5 card hand, depending on the player count. And if your card is in that best hand or multiple cards, you score those cards. So you want to be part of the best poker hand, but you don't know what that is because you're only contributing 2 or 3 cards to it, depending on the player count. It depends on what everyone else is playing as well. So you're trying to work together with other people, score things. It's got a similar-ish feel to Bonanza, where in Bonanza you want to trade all the time. If you are part of more trades, you're probably going to win, because every trade is typically giving you some edge, some little half coin, third of a coin, putting that card in your field, and the more you trade, the more you get. You want to do that a lot. Surfosaurus Max has that same sort of feel in that you're working with other people to make something happen, and ideally, you get just a little bit more when you score than they do. Play a certain number of rounds, see who has the most points and wins. So the concept of the game is fantastic. You can explain it pretty quickly. Everyone gets into it. It's got lots of little quibbles, mostly with the graphic design, a little bit with the production, that take away from the ideal gaming experience. But the concept overall is fantastic. So let me talk about that first, and then we'll get into some of the little things that could be ironed out. For the most part, Surfosaurus Max is just a deck of 84 cards. You have cards numbered 1 to 12 in 7 suits. I lay out all the dinosaurs. You can see the variety of dinosaurs that go surfing at this beach. Each player is going to get a hand of 7 cards, and on a turn you play a card and draw a card. You get 7 cards at random from the deck. Whoever is the start player plays something on the table, their choice, whatever they want to do. Let's say they do a red 2. Okay. Now, you don't know what they have in hand, but you can guess they probably have more red, or maybe a 2, or maybe numbers around it. They're trying to get a straight or a flush, 5 of a kind, straight flush. Those are the ordered of the winning suits from low to high. Well, high cards, and then straight, flush, 5 of a kind, or 4 of a kind, depending on the player count, and a straight flush. So maybe the next player looks at this and they're like, well, sure, I'll put down a red 10. Okay, then we got a flush that we're possibly working on. Can we do more? And then maybe the next player is like, oh, I'm going to play an orange 10. So, okay, orange 10, pair of red. This guy feels pretty good, at least part of 2 hands right now. And now it's a green 9. And now it's an orange 9. So you're trying to play cards that ideally are going to be part of that winning hand as it collectively forms during the play itself. Maybe we got 5. Maybe we got this. And then we got 4 red cards. Ooh, what's going on there? What's going to happen? And they had a red card, they'd probably play it, but maybe they don't. And they go in for something else. And now we're just like, oh, well, at least we get a straight. Okay? We got a 7 to 11 straight. That sounds good. And then the next player says, oh, there we go. Now we've got an 8 to 12 straight. So this 7 now got cut off from the straight. Okay? You play cards to often shut people out of scoring to keep that from happening. Of course, if this person has a red card, now you've got a flush, which is better than a straight. So straight doesn't matter anymore. The 5 red cards are scoring. Of course, if this player has a higher red card, then that 1 gets shut out as well. And these are the only 5 cards that score. There's no straight flush on the table. There's no 5 of a kind on the table. The flush takes it. And it's a 6-card flush, but the bottom card gets dumped. So these cards score. And when you score, the points vary depending on the number on the card. So the 1s and 2s are worth 12 points, and we don't have low cards out here. 3s and 4s are 10, 5s and 6s are 8, and then 6, 4, and 2. All right, so you can see the variety of scoring. The low numbers are worth more, but they're often going to get shut out of scoring depending upon what's on the table. Because if you got a straight flush, you have a flush, you have a straight, those low numbers will get cut off. If you have a 5 of a kind, well then all 5 of those are scoring. Now you can have ties in a winning hand. If you actually have a 6 of a kind on the table, all those cards score because there's no tie-breaking mechanism among the suits, but they're only going to score half value. All right, you can see a full coconut and a half coconut here, so it's showing you don't get 12 points, you get 6 points if you end up with a 6 of a kind. Or maybe you're going to end up with a straight, with these being the cards in the high straight. In this case, these cards score full value, these cards score only half value because they're tied, and there's no way to break the tie. And the tie works the same way if you have no straight, flush, 5 of a kind. If you don't have that, you just go with high cards. Well, then again, maybe you've got a tie, and these tied cards score at half. All right, so you play a certain number of hands, you add up your score, you see who wins. It's all very straightforward, and the momentum around the table really changes based upon what people are playing, because you assume that when someone is playing something, they're trying to push something and make something happen. It's a very good feel. Now, you might have looked at all these cards being played and already seen some of the issues I want to talk about. So one to mention right away is that in your hand, when you're looking at the cards, it is often easy to confuse a red card with a yellow card because all the cards have a colored top except for the yellow and the red, which both have white at the top. And people have confused those in their hand. In the second printing, the publisher has changed this, so there's no longer this confusion with the white top. This is a first print here. Okay, that's one of the issues, small graphic thing. Another graphic thing is that all the numbers are 2 digits. I assume maybe this is a European choice to make it 2 digits, to make it full, so there's not just a single digit and then it bumps up to 2 digits with an 11. But one problem I've noticed while playing is that if someone plays a 1 on the other side of the table, you'll often read that as a 10. You just glance over and you see it's a 10. So we just make sure when people play this, they say, I got a black 1, right? Which maybe you should do anyway. I've got an orange 5. I got a blue 9. I've got an orange 10, right? So me on the other side of the table, I don't read this as a 1. So small quibble there. If you didn't have the 0, you would never mistake the 1 for a 10. This is not changing in the second edition, second printing. Publisher said that never came up before, but in every game that I played, we had people confuse the 1 and 10. You have a symbol on here. So if someone has color blindness, you can possibly use the symbols. I'll show all the different symbols to distinguish the suits. All right, you see the symbols here. They're on each index corner. You have to flip the cards around so they're all one direction. It's a little busy and a little hard to see those symbols. not necessarily ideal. I don't have color blindness issues, so I don't know how difficult it is to see these, but just visually, these are very busy cards. And possibly there's a better way to do that, to make this easier to see, right? Or put a whole border up top. I'm not sure. But again, it's a busy card when you look at it. Another part of the busyness is the full and half coconut. Okay? You have full and half coconuts because each player has a set of 3 cards. You got a full coconut, a half coconut, and a surfboard. What's the surfboard for? Just for style. And when you're the lead player, you can put this big purple dinosaur on it, so we know you're the lead player. And then you fool around with it, and you move the dinosaur on the table, and you make them eat cards when you score cards. Can I do this? Yeah, there you go. It's just fun to play with. It's a nice little touch that is pointless, but fun. So when you score, if you score full points for the card, you slide it under here, and half points goes under here. And one thing that bugs me, just a small little thing, is I should not be bothered by this, but I am. So you look at this card here, 12 points if it scores in full, 6 points if it scores only half. But it's 6 halves, and 6 halves is actually 3 coconuts. I get what they're trying to do, but if it's 12 full coconuts, I want like 6 coconuts here, or 12 half coconuts, but each of those is confusing in its own way. And this is confusing only because maybe I'm a math guy and immediately I'm like 6 coconuts or 3 coconuts. That's only a quarter of the score, not half. And maybe you just say, Eric, shut up. That's pointless. Why are you worrying about that? But maybe you don't need that at all, that half value, right? Maybe you can do something else. Just put the top value on, and I put it under here, and I put this under here, and I know that when I score this, I'm only going to get 4 points. It's a little more math at the end because you have to sum these, divide by 2, and then add these. Maybe that's why you avoid the problem. But in any case, it's very busy up here and somewhat confusing. All right, the red yellow is taken care of, but not that. And one other little thing. So the game includes player aids for all the player counts, 2 players, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. And it includes as many player aids as the number of players. You have 6 of these for a 6-player game, 4 for a 4-player game, and so on, which is super helpful. But then you have these little details that just bug me and possibly shouldn't. So depending on the player count, you're going to remove some number of cards from play. 6 players, nothing. 5 players, 4 cards. 4 players, nothing. 12 cards and 24 cards. And they do this so that you run out of cards in the deck at the same time, roughly in all the games based on the player count. And for the last few turns, you're just playing cards from your hand without drawing anything as a replacement. So you kind of have to plan a little bit and ideally leave yourself with a pair or 2 cards of the same color or something like that so you can try to push in a certain direction in those final hands. With 2, 3, and 4 players, with 2 and 3 players, you're playing 3 cards each. With 4, 5, and 6, you're only playing 2 cards. So you have reminders of all this, and you have reminders of the orders of the suit. This is 4-card suit, 4-card hand, a 4-card hand, and a 5-card hand. So it's all these little differences based on the player count, and I would just love if somehow all of these differences didn't take place and things were streamlined out, and so that no matter what the player count, you just play. I don't have to worry about removing cards. I don't have to worry about the size of the hand. I know you're trying to effectively create the same play experience no matter what the player count. But more and more, I feel annoyed by little details like this, where it removes from the cleanness of the design, and I have to futz around with it a bit to engineer the deck. And remember, we're playing 3 cards. We're playing 3 cards. All right, we got this, and then the best 4-card hand. And here we're only playing 2 cards. And we're going to play 2 rounds each, 3 rounds each, 1 round each. So different number of rounds based on the player count. So it all works out the same as we work our way through the deck and sort of end at the same time. And the scores vary a lot because you're going to have different number of rounds with different number of players, and they're going to vary a lot just because the cards differ in the points. You may have lots of low numbers score in one game and then high numbers score in another game. And so those winning totals will be very different. That's cool. I love the variety in that because it really shows the nature of the cards sort of rearing their head and showing their importance. That's cool. That's natural, that scoring difference that comes out. Whereas the scoring difference here, it just bugs me a little. Again, it's the small details, just like all these details up here. Small stuff that doesn't detract from the gameplay, but is just a little irritating for me. There you go. An overview of Surfosaurus Max, which I'd played 11 times on a review copy from Loosey Goosey Games with player counts 3 through 6. And I loved pretty much all of them. I like some player counts more than others. I think I like 6, 4, 5, and 3. Partly just because of the number of players at the table. You get more interaction going. You also have the number of times around the table, so you get to play off other people. With 4 players, you only play 2 cards. So there's only 8 cards, and it's the best 4-card hand. It's a little harder to make things happen. With 6 players, I feel like we often got straight flushes, more often than in any other player count, just because there's 12 cards on the table. Even with a 5-card hand, you have people sort of moving in that direction as you're putting cards down, and you get that straight flush. So the winning hands varied a lot depending on the player count, just because of the number of cards that are being played. With 3 players, you're playing 3 cards each, and so 9 cards on the table in a 4-card hand. So you could contribute 3 of the cards towards that winning hand. But of course, other players are probably going to try not to make that happen. If you put down 3 cards that are all the same suit, no one else should have played that card that would make that flush happen, because they're getting 1 card to your 3, unless maybe they get the 1 and you get all the high numbers. There's lots of cool interaction as you're playing. People sort of spontaneously start chanting, orange, 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 orange. As soon as someone puts down the second orange card, those first 2 players are like, yes, make orange happen. And then people are like, no, I'm putting down a 9. 9s are fine. Do that. 10s are going to win. Whatever it is, we kind of spontaneously had people making chants around the table, people really getting into it. And it felt really energizing and natural that happened from the gameplay, because you are trying to partner with other people to win. So you immediately form these bonds and you're like, yes, make this happen. And it feels really good. So that's a natural outcome of the gameplay. It's not in the rules, of course. It's not there, but it comes into the play. And that's great. One aspect that was not so great is that not every game, but many games, there was often one player who could barely contribute, because you'd be sort of working towards a flush and then someone else is working towards a straight, and then they have a card that fits neither of those. And so they're just like, okay, I'll play this. And then they draw a replacement and go, because they just drew something that also doesn't help. And then they score nothing. And then maybe they score nothing again on the next hand. Maybe they score nothing again. That was never me in any of the games, but I saw it happen to other people, and they looked like they were bummed out. They did not have a great time. And it's the luck of the draw. Sometimes that happens, but if that's your first experience with the game, that might be your last experience with the game, because you're just like, this is stupid. I can't score any points. Why would I do this? Okay. And maybe, yeah, you can do that if you want. Of course, luck of the cards, hopefully you try again. You understand, and maybe it all comes together next time. Also, I had people, great situations where people are really smartly playing things to try to set up for potential scores, and then sometimes not playing something because they would cut themselves out. Like we had people who were putting down for a straight flush, I believe it was like a 2 blue, and we sort of worked our way up to, we had 1 to 5 blue, and they were holding the 6 blue to ensure that no one else could play. So if someone else had played the 7, it doesn't matter. The 6 isn't going to score, and they know that. And so they're kind of leveraging themselves to score. And of course, it worked out. Luckily, the 1-5 blue went down because they had another one of those low blues in there. So it's really cool how you can shift things around the table and make things happen sometimes just because you're playing the odds of what you have in your hand. And it can work out for you, or it doesn't. That's the break sometimes. Now, speaking of playing the odds, I did play the 2-player game. I got back from BGG.CON. I'm like, fine, I'll give it a try just for completeness so I can talk about it in a video just like this one. And I played 2-player. So in a 2-player game, each player plays a card. You then flip a card from the deck. Each player plays a card, flip a card, and then 2 more cards. So you have 8 cards on the table. The best 4-card hand wins. And now it changes a little bit because you could have 3 cards that score with a dummy card, or 2 of the dummy cards and 2 of your cards. And you can shut out the opponent completely. And the dummy cards, you just throw them away. The dummy doesn't keep score. Doesn't matter. They are out along with any other non-winning cards. So there you are playing the odds more on just what might flip from the deck. And maybe you'll get lucky and maybe you won't. And if you don't like that type of chance, well, then this probably isn't the game for you, at least with 2 players. Might not be the game for you even with more players, because there is a lot of chance on what other people are going to bring to the table to a particular hand. But I found I actually liked the 2-player version. Normally I hate dummy player stuff because often it's just about trying to get the high score. They got some sort of programmed activity, and it takes away from the interaction that I want with another person. But here, all you had to do was flip a card. And then that changed immediately when you saw what flipped. And you see like, oh, this could score. Well, if they have that in their hand, then they can make this happen. And so you're still worrying about the other person. It's just a little random element dropping in there. And it's good. Not my preferred player account. That would be at the bottom, the 64532, because the experience that I really enjoyed the most was the large group experience. People chanting and cheering and putting things together, and, had a great time playing this game and good memories on it. And we'll see if someone else releases it. Loosey Goosey is a small company, started in 2021 by Andreas Price, who used to work with Zoc, and he keeps releasing games in this small package. One of the other ones, his other release for Spiel 23 was this Lunar Laser Frogs. You see from the plastic, I have not opened this yet. This caught my attention. I'd read the description before, and I'm like, this is probably going to be my thing. Semi-cooperative card game. Yeah, that's going to be good. And then the actual experience of playing it was better than I expected just because of that group dynamic that came out as we're playing the game. It probably also did not hurt that I usually did pretty well. Possibly it's just experience. Experience does matter. You're anticipating what you think could happen, and you get a sense for what's going to score. Just based on experience, what could happen. And there is a small memory element to the game because played cards are out. Whether they score or not, they're out of the game. So if we had a winning 5 of a kind with 5s, then you know it's really unlikely you're going to get a straight from 1 to 5. So, okay, you're going to keep that in mind. So there's a little memory element too as numbers get played out. What could win in the future? And the future is not that long because in a 5 or 6 player game, it's 5 or 6 rounds and that's it. So the 20-minute playing time on the side is fairly accurate, maybe 20 to 30, depending on the player count. So it's got all these neat little elements that come together in very fun gameplay. I hate to use the word fun, because of course fun means a lot of different things to different people, but I'd say this dynamic interactivity, this sort of crowd experience, even though it's like a crowd of 3 people. You're trying to make it happen. Can you make this happen? Can you do this? And yeah, it's cool, especially when someone's going to win like a 5 of a kind and you as the last player on the hand can drop down the 6th one because you're scoring now because you're part of that 5 of a kind, and you just have the score of every other card. So it's definitely a win-win, right? You made this thing together and then you beat other people. So it feels cool. Yeah, you want to set up these moments here. It's very nice. I really enjoy it a lot. Hopefully other people pick it up. This is an English-German version, so if you speak English or German or can translate, then you can always go with this. But of course, Loosey Goosey is only in Germany right now. Don't know if they have distribution outside Germany. So maybe someone else picks it up and maybe irons out some of those wrinkles. I'd like the surfing dinosaurs, mostly just because it's absurd and different. It is not, a king ruling a country or blah, 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 or whatever it is. It's something neat with other artwork. You got this sort of Peter Max style with bright colors and outline. It's fun and different, right? You have the completely superfluous first player marker. You don't need this. The surfboard, you don't need that. But it's neat. Also, one final element, I guess there were extra cards when they were printing, because in each of the colors, you have an extra card without a number. So if one of your orange cards gets eaten by the dog, just write the number on here and put this in your deck, and now you're good to go. So it's a nice little touch where you include replacement cards in the box itself. Just if you got room, then you can do that. Or for people like me who throw out the insert and now I just leave everything around loose, let it all shake around. So I can replace all those damaged cards I have, which so far is 0. No damage. That's from another video though. So there you go. Surfosaurus Max. Like it. I like it.